I bought my mother a $600,000 house with my own money, outright, no mortgage. 2 years later, I found out my brother's wife had been introducing her to dinner guests as the maid. That was the last mistake she got to make in that house. I'm 39 years old, and after selling a software company I'd built for almost a decade, I bought my mother, Farida, a house outright 2 years ago, close to my brother Zishan's family so she could be near her grandchildren in her later years. I put the deed fully in her name. No conditions, no strings, just something I wanted to give her after decades of her working 2 jobs to raise us alone. Zishan's wife, Hina, had never been particularly warm toward my mother. Something I'd noticed at family gatherings over the years, but never pushed hard about. Since Zishan seemed happy, and I didn't want to create tension in his marriage over dynamics that felt, at the time, more like personality friction than genuine disrespect. My mother moved into that house and, being who she is, immediately started hosting family dinners, helping care for Zishan and Hina's kids, cooking for gatherings the way she always had. I thought it was a good arrangement for everyone. I found out what was actually happening from my aunt, almost by accident, during a phone call about something unrelated. She mentioned, casually, that at a recent dinner party Hina hosted at my mother's house, Hina had introduced my mother to several of her friends as our housekeeper, letting my mother serve food and clear plates throughout the evening while guests assumed exactly what Hina wanted them to assume. My aunt said this wasn't a one-time slip. She'd heard from 2 other relatives that this had happened at smaller gatherings before, always when Hina's own friends or co-workers were present, never when family who already knew my mother was around. I called my mother directly and asked her, gently, if this was true. She admitted it, almost apologetically, saying she didn't want to cause problems between me and my brother, and that she genuinely didn't mind helping in the kitchen, regardless of what anyone assumed about her. That last part, her willingness to shrink herself down to avoid causing friction, was what actually made me angry. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't planning some dramatic confrontation. I'm not someone who does well with scenes. Instead, I looked at what I actually had control over. 6 months earlier, Zishan had asked me to co-invest in a restaurant franchise opportunity with him, something I'd agreed to in principle, and had already started the early paperwork for, planning to put up 60% of the initial capital. I hadn't signed anything final yet. I called Zishan and told him I was pulling out of the investment entirely. When he asked why, confused and clearly caught off guard, I told him exactly what I'd learned, that his wife had been quietly humiliating our mother in her own home. The home I'd bought her, in front of strangers, more than once. Zishan was defensive at first, insisting Hina didn't mean anything by it, that it was probably just an awkward misunderstanding, blown out of proportion by relatives who liked to gossip. I told him I'd heard it from 3 separate people, and that regardless of intent, our mother had been made to feel like hired help in a house that belonged entirely to her. I'm not interested in funding a business with someone who lets that happen without saying a word, I said. You can invest on your own, or find another partner. That's not something I'm willing to be part of anymore. He tried to negotiate, offered to have Hina apologize, said the franchise deadline was tight and he needed my capital to move forward. I told him the apology needed to go to our mother, not to me, and that my decision about the investment wasn't a negotiation. Hina did eventually apologize to my mother, stiffly, clearly more about salvaging the business opportunity than genuine remorse. Zishan found a different investor for the franchise, at less favorable terms than I would have offered him. My mother still lives in that house, though family gatherings there have grown noticeably smaller and quieter since. I don't regret the decision. I didn't do it as punishment exactly, more as a simple unwillingness to keep investing my time, money, and trust into a relationship where my mother's dignity was treated as negotiable. Some costs aren't measured in dollars, and I wasn't willing to keep paying that one silently, the way she had been. If someone in your life has ever let a person they love be quietly disrespected to avoid an uncomfortable conversation, I hope you find the same clarity I found about what you're actually willing to keep investing in. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this one.